The Fall of the Samurai, Japan's Last Warriors. You've seen the movies. The noble samurai, the elegant sword fights, the honorable deaths. Cherry blossoms falling while warriors recite poetry before charging into glorious battle. The Last Samurai told you Tom Cruise could learn their ways in a few months and stand shoulder to shoulder with men who'd trained since childhood. Beautiful, romantic, complete fiction. Tonight, we're going to see what it actually felt like to be samurai when your entire world ended. When everything you were trained for, everything your father and his father before him stood for, became obsolete. Not in a blaze of glory, not in one climactic battle, but slowly, humiliatingly. While you watched peasants, with 2 weeks of training, mow down warriors who'd spent lifetimes perfecting their craft. This is the story of men who woke up one morning as the reeling warrior elite of Japan and went to bed as unemployed relics. This is about watching modernity arrive on black ships and realizing that your sword, your honor, your entire identity meant nothing against a Gatling gun. The year is 1868. You're samurai, and your world is about to end. Let's start with what you actually are. Not the movie version, the real thing. You're 26 years old. You were born samurai. Your father was samurai. Your grandfather was samurai. Go back far enough, and your ancestors were probably just guys with swords who got good at killing. But nobody talks about that anymore. Now you have pedigree. You have a family name that means something. You wear 2 swords, the katana and the wakizashi, because only samurai are allowed to carry both. It's called daisho. The right to wear it is everything. You've been training since you could walk. Not training like going to the gym. Training like your father beating the weakness out of you with bamboo swords until your hands bled. Training like sitting in meditation until you could ignore your own hunger. Training like studying texts written 400 years ago about the correct way to die. Because that's what this has always been about. Death, how to deal it, how to face it, how to make your death mean something. You live in a small castle town in northern Japan, Aizu Domain. The name should mean something to you. We'll come back to it. Your salary is paid in rice by your lord. Not a lot of rice. Enough to not starve, but you're not wealthy. Most samurai aren't. That's another lie the movies told you. Most samurai are bureaucrats, low-level administrators, guards. You spend more time doing paperwork than swinging swords, but you have status. When you walk down the street, peasants bow. They have to. If they don't, and this is actually true, you have the legal right to cut them down. It's called Kirisute Gomen. Permission to cut and leave. You've never done it. Your father did once when he was young. He still talks about it sometimes, his voice distant, like he's trying to justify something that doesn't need justification because the law said it was fine. You've never had to question any of this. The social order is as natural as the sun rising. Samurai at the top, peasants at the bottom, everyone in their place. It's been this way for 250 years, since the Tokugawa shogunate unified Japan and said, enough war. Everyone stays put. No more social mobility. No more chaos. It worked. The peace held. And in that peace, something happened that nobody planned for. You became obsolete. Think about that for a second. You're a warrior in a society that hasn't fought a real war in 2.5 centuries. Your grandfather never saw battle. Your father never saw battle. You've trained your entire life for something that never happens. The sword skills you've perfected. They're not tactics anymore. They're art. They're dance. They're beautiful, precise, completely useless movements for a war that isn't coming. Except now it is. It starts with the ships. You're 12 years old. You hear the news before you see anything. American ships in Edo Bay. Black ships, people call them. Kurafune. You don't understand why everyone is so afraid until your father explains it. They have guns, not like our guns, not matchlocks that take 2 minutes to reload and miss, more often than they hit. Real guns, cannons that can sink our ships from a mile away. And they want us to open our borders, to trade, to let foreigners in. The shogunate tells them no. The Americans park their ships in the bay and wait. They're not leaving. And everyone realizes at the same moment, we can't make them leave. Our coastal defenses are ceremonial. Our navy is wooden ships that would splinter under one broadside. The Americans could level Edo if they wanted to. A year later, we sign the treaty. We open our ports. The foreigners start arriving. You watch Japan change like watching a loved one get sick. It's not sudden, it's a slow rot. Foreign merchants set up trading posts. Foreign diplomats walk through Kyoto like they own it. Foreigners, and this is the part that makes your teeth grind, don't bow. They don't follow our customs. They treat samurai like we're curiosities, exotic, quaint. Some samurai start learning English, start wearing Western clothes, start cutting their top knots, the traditional samurai hairstyle that you've worn since you were 15. It's called shomage. When you see a samurai without it, it's like seeing a monk without his robes. Something fundamental has been abandoned. Your father spits when he sees them. Traitors, he says. They forget what we are. But you're starting to wonder, what are we? The shogunate starts buying Western weapons, rifles, cannons. They create new military units, not samurai units, peasant units, and train them in Western tactics. Formations, volley fire, bayonet charges, everything we spent centuries moving away from. Because here's what the sword was always about: individual skill. One-on-one, combat. The idea that the superior warrior wins through training, discipline, spirit. Bushido. The way of the warrior. Guns don't care about Bushido. Guns care about mathematics, trajectory, rate of fire, industrial production. A peasant who's held a rifle for 2 weeks can kill a samurai who's trained for 20 years. Not in a fair fight. There are no fair fights with guns. Just distance and probability. You watch your father process this. Watch him try to fit it into his worldview. He can't. It doesn't fit. So he decides it's all temporary. A phase. Japan will remember itself. Will reject this foreign poison. Will return to the old ways. He's wrong. But you don't know that yet. Everything falls apart at once. The emperor, who for centuries has been a ceremonial figurehead while the shogun actually ruled, suddenly matters again. A group of younger samurai, mostly from the south, rally around him. They call it the Meiji Restoration. They say they're restoring imperial power. What they're actually doing is staging a coup. They want to modernize Japan, westernize it, turn it into a power that can stand against America, Britain, France. And to do that, they need to destroy the shogunate. Destroy the old order. Destroy you. Your domain, Aizu, stays loyal to the shogun. It's what you're supposed to do. It's honor. It's duty. All those values you were raised on. The southern domains raise armies. The shogunate raises armies. And just like that, after 250 years of peace, Japan is at war with itself. You're 26. You've never fought anyone outside of training matches. Your sword has never tasted blood. You've spent your life preparing for war, and now that it's here, you realize you're not ready. Nobody is. The enemy isn't using swords. They're using rifles. Snider Enfield rifles, imported from Britain. Breech loading, fast to reload. Accurate at 300 yards. Your katana is effective at about 6 feet. You do the math. Your lord calls an assembly. Every samurai in the domain. Thousands of you, standing in the castle courtyard, wearing your armor. Domaru. Lamellar plates, laced together. Heavy, hot, designed for a kind of warfare that died centuries ago. You look magnificent. You look like history. Your lord speaks about honor, about loyalty, about standing firm against the traitors who would destroy Japan's soul. You believe him. You have to believe him. Because if he's wrong, if the cause is lost, then what are you dying for? They give you a rifle. You don't want it. You want to fight with your sword. But orders are orders. You take the rifle. It's a matchlock, old style. The enemy has breech loaders, and you have matchlocks. Someone in the logistics chain has monumentally fucked up, but there's no time to fix it. You train for 3 days, loading, aiming, firing. You hit the target sometimes. The rifle kicks hard. Smoke gets in your eyes. The whole thing feels wrong, clumsy, dishonorable. But you're a soldier now, not a warrior. There's a difference. A warrior chooses his fights, tests his skill, dies with meaning. A soldier follows orders, holds a line, dies because someone 3 ranks back didn't reload fast enough. The first battle is nothing like you imagined. You march for 2 days. Your unit, 200 men, heading to reinforce a position near the border. It's raining, not movie rain, real rain. The kind that soaks through everything, turns the road into soup, makes your armor rust even as you're wearing it. Your feet blister. The man next to you has dysentery. You can smell it. Everyone can smell it. Nobody says anything. You're exhausted before you even see the enemy. When you do see them, they're not what you expected. They're samurai, too. Or they were. Most of them have cut their top knots. They're wearing a mix of traditional armor and Western uniforms. It looks absurd, patchwork, but their rifles are new. You can tell from here. Your commander orders the line to form. You spread out across a field. Rice paddies on one side, forest on the other. You're in the middle, holding your matchlock, trying to remember the loading sequence. Powder down the barrel, ball, ramrod, prime the pan, light the match. Don't drop the match. Don't spill the powder. Don't think about the fact that you're standing in the open and they have rifles that can reload in 5 seconds. Someone shouts. You look up. The enemy line is raising their weapons. You've never been shot at before. Nobody has prepared you for what it feels like. Not the impact. You don't get hit. Not yet. The sound. Rifles sound different than matchlocks. Sharper, louder, more real. You hear the crack, and then you hear the buzz of bullets passing near your head. Not a whoosh like in movies. A buzz, like angry insects made of lead. The man 2 positions down from you drops. You don't see him get hit. 1 second he's standing, the next he's on the ground. His face is gone. Not damaged, gone. There's just red where his face used to be. You stare. You can't help it. Your brain is trying to process what you're seeing, and it can't. It just can't. Your commander is screaming. Fire. Fire back. You raise your matchlock. Your hands are shaking so hard you nearly drop it. You aim somewhere toward the enemy line. You pull the trigger. The gun roars. Smoke blinds you. You have no idea if you hit anything. You're already reloading. Powder, ball, ramrod. Your fingers are wet. The powder is wet. It's not going to work. It works anyway. You fire again. Miss again, probably. The enemy is advancing, walking forward in a line, stopping to fire, reloading as they walk. It's called volley fire. You learned about it in training. In training, it seemed orderly, manageable. In reality, it's terror. They're 40 yards away, 30, 20. Your commander orders a charge. This is it. This is what you trained for. Sword against sword. Skill against skill. You drop your rifle. You draw your katana. The steel sings as it leaves the scabbard. Around you, other samurai are doing the same. For a moment, just a moment, you feel something like joy. This is right. This is what samurai do. You charge. They keep firing. The man to your left goes down. Gut shot. He's screaming. The man to your right goes down. Leg. He's crawling. You're still running. You're 10 yards away. 5. You can see their faces now. They look young. They look terrified. You raise your sword. You've practiced this cut 10,000 times. Perfect form, perfect balance. You're going to... The world flips. You're on the ground. You don't remember falling. Your leg doesn't work. You look down. There's a hole in your thigh. Not a cut. A hole. You can see bone. White against red against the brown of your armor. It doesn't hurt yet. It will. Above you, the battle continues. Boots splash past. Someone steps on your hand. You try to move. You can't. Your leg won't respond. The pain is starting now. It's not sharp. It's deep. Grinding, like your bone is trying to tear itself out of your body. You lie there. The battle moves away. The rain keeps falling. You're cold. So cold. You can't tell if you're shaking from shock or just from the rain. Someone finds you eventually. A medical orderly. He's not a doctor. Japan doesn't have military doctors yet, not really. He's just a guy who knows how to tie a tourniquet. He ties one around your leg. Too tight. You scream. He ignores you. He moves on. There are other wounded. So many wounded. You survive. The leg gets infected. They cut it off below the knee. No anesthesia. They give you a piece of wood to bite. You bite through it. The battle was a loss. Your side retreated. The enemy took the position. Later, you hear the casualty counts. Your unit lost 60 men. The enemy lost 12. Welcome to modern warfare. You're not a warrior anymore. You're a cripple. The word sounds harsh. It is harsh, but that's what you are. You can't fight. You can barely walk. They give you a crutch. Wooden. It rubs your armpit raw. You learn to move with it. Swing, step, swing, step. It takes you 5 minutes to cross a room that used to take 5 seconds. Your father doesn't look at you. Not directly. He looks past you, through you. You've become something embarrassing. A reminder that the old ways don't work anymore. The war continues. You hear reports. The shogunate is losing. Battle after battle. The Western-trained units of the imperial forces are crushing samurai armies. It's not even close. At Toba Fushimi, 4,000 imperial troops defeat 15,000 shogunate forces. The math shouldn't work. But the imperial forces have modern rifles and artillery. The shogunate forces have pride and history. Pride and history don't stop bullets. The shogun surrenders in 1868. He gives up, steps down, accepts the Meiji emperor's authority. The war should be over. Aizu doesn't surrender. Your lord doesn't accept it. Loyalty, he says. Honor, he says. We fight to the end. You know how this ends. Everyone knows. But knowing doesn't change anything. The imperial forces march north. They're coming to Aizu, coming to punish the domain that refused to submit. You can't fight. But you watch them prepare. Watch the remaining samurai, less than 3,000 now, prepare for the siege. They're going to defend the castle. The old castle, built 300 years ago. designed to withstand samurai attacks. Stone walls, arrow slits, perfect defense against swords and bows. The Imperial forces have artillery, Armstrong guns, British made. They can punch through the castle walls like they're paper. You try to tell them. You try to explain. They don't listen. How can they? Accepting that would mean accepting that everything they are, everything they've built their identity on, is worthless. Easier to die. The siege begins in September, autumn. The leaves are turning. It would be beautiful if it weren't for the shelling. The Imperial forces surround the castle, set up their guns, start firing. The sound is constant. Boom, boom, boom. Every few minutes, another shell. Stone explodes. Wood splinters. People die in ways that don't make sense. A man is standing next to you one moment. The next moment, he's not there. Not dead on the ground. Not wounded. Just gone. Vaporized by a direct hit. You're inside the castle. Useless. Unable to fight. But you can help with the wounded. There are so many wounded. More every day. The medical supplies run out in the first week. After that, it's just bandages. Torn from clothes, from blankets, from anything. You tie tourniquets. You hold men down while someone else amputates. You watch men die from infections that wouldn't kill them if you had proper medicine. The castle is full of civilians, women, children, elders. They couldn't evacuate in time. Now they're trapped. The shells don't discriminate. A 5-year-old girl is brought in, shrapnel in her stomach. She asks for her mother. Her mother is dead. You don't tell her that. You hold her hand while she dies. It takes 3 hours. Food runs out. They start rationing. 1 bowl of rice per day, then half a bowl, then whatever you can find. Someone catches a rat. They cook it. You eat it. It tastes like charcoal and regret. The water starts to fail. The wells are contaminated. Dead bodies in them, probably. You drink it anyway. You get sick. Everyone gets sick. Dysentery spreads through the castle like wildfire. The latrines overflow. The smell is everywhere. You stop noticing after a while. Your senses just shut down. The White Tiger Brigade makes their last stand. You hear about it after. Young samurai. Teenagers. 16, 17 years old. They're fighting in the hills outside the castle. They see smoke rising from the city. They think the castle has fallen. They commit seppuku. Ritual suicide. All 20 of them. Together. The castle hasn't fallen. The smoke was just fire from the shelling. They died for nothing. For a misunderstanding. When you hear the story, you don't feel sadness. You don't feel anything. You're too tired, too hungry, too far past the point where emotions work normally. The siege lasts a month. Finally, the Lord surrenders. The castle opens. The Imperial forces march in. You expect massacre. You expect them to kill everyone. They don't. They're professional, disciplined. They separate the fighters from the civilians. They provide medical care, food, water. They treat you like prisoners of war, not traitors. It's humiliating. Kindness from the enemy. It means they don't even hate you enough to kill you. You're not a threat. You're a problem to be managed. Like dealing with refugees from a natural disaster. 3,000 Aizu samurai die in the siege. Civilians, too. Nobody counts the civilians. The Imperial forces lose 300 men. 10-1. Those are the new ratios. That's what modern warfare looks like. You survived. You don't know if that's better or worse. The war ends. The shogunate is gone. The emperor is restored. Japan begins its transformation into a modern state. They abolished the samurai class in 1876. Just like that. An edict. You're not samurai anymore. You're commoners. Your rice stipends are converted to bonds. Government bonds that pay out over 15 years. It's not enough to live on. You need to find work. What work? You were trained to fight and to administrate. There are no wars to fight. The administration jobs go to the young men who've learned Western systems. Men who speak English. Men who've cut their hair and wear Western suits. You're 34 years old. You have one leg. You have two swords that you're no longer legally allowed to wear in public. They pass a law, Haitore, the Sword Abolishment Edict. Carrying swords is now illegal, unless you're military or police. You wear your katana anyway, just once, walking through town, daring someone to say something. A policeman stops you. He's young, maybe 20. He's polite. He asks you to surrender the sword. His hand is on his pistol. You could draw. You're faster. Even with one leg, you're faster. You could cut him down before he clears the holster. It would be the first time you've used your sword in actual combat. After all the training, all the preparation, killing a policeman for trying to enforce a law, you hand him the sword. He takes it. He gives you a receipt. The receipt says you can reclaim it from the station. You never do. Your father commits seppuku in 1877. Ritual suicide. He does it properly. Kaishakunin, a second, to cut his head off after he cuts his belly. Merciful. Your uncle performs the duty. Your father dies maintaining the old forms, maintaining his honor. You don't. Honor seems like a luxury you can't afford anymore. You find work, manual labor, dock work, when they'll hire you. A crippled ex-samurai is a hard sell. You're slow. You can't lift as much as the other workers, but you show up every day. That counts for something. You cut your top knot. It feels like cutting off a limb. No, worse. The leg you lost in battle, that was taken from you. The top knot you give away yourself. But you need work. And nobody's hiring men who look like samurai. The years pass. Japan changes. Factories, railroads, telegraph lines. Western clothes become normal. Western buildings, Western schools. The young people don't remember the old Japan. Don't remember what it was like when samurai meant something. You watch students learn kendo, the way of the sword, as a sport, a hobby. They don't understand what they're doing. To them, it's exercise, character building. They laugh while they practice. You remember when making a mistake in sword training meant your teacher breaking your ribs with a bakken, when the point was to prepare for death. They don't know. They don't need to know. That Japan is gone. The Satsuma Rebellion. One last gasp. Saigo Takamori, a hero of the Meiji Restoration, a samurai who helped overthrow the shogunate, leads a rebellion against the government he helped create. He sees what you see, that Japan is abandoning its soul. He raises an army, 40,000 men, samurai, real samurai, or what's left of them. The government responds with a conscript army, peasants, farmers, men with 3 months of training and modern rifles. You read about the battles in the newspaper. Yes, newspapers now. The rebellion is front-page news. The samurai fight bravely, use their swords, charge machine gun nests, die heroically. They lose every battle. Saigo commits seppuku in September after a last stand at Shiroyama. His remaining 300 warriors charge the government forces. The government has 7,000 men with modern weapons. It's not a battle, it's target practice. 300 samurai die in one night. The government forces lose 30 men. That's the end. The last real samurai rebellion. After that, it's over. The class is dead. Not just abolished, dead. The young don't want to be samurai. They want to be businessmen, engineers, politicians. The future doesn't have room for warriors when the wars are fought with artillery and logistics and industrial capacity. You're 45 years old. You've outlived your entire world. You die in 1894, not in battle, from pneumonia. You're working the docks when you get sick. No money for a doctor. No money for medicine. You die in a charity hospital, in a ward full of strangers. No one performs the death rites properly. You're not samurai anymore. You're just another poor man, dying in a bed that will be filled with someone else before you're cold. Your nephew inherits your swords. He sells them, needs the money. The katana goes to a collector, a Westerner, American. He hangs it on his wall in California. A curiosity, a conversation piece. He tells people it belonged to a real samurai. He has no idea what that means. Your name is forgotten. Your service is forgotten. The battles you survived, or tried to survive, become footnotes in history. Books. The students learning about the Meiji Restoration don't learn about Aizu. Don't learn about the White Tiger Brigade. Don't learn about the men who stayed loyal and were punished for it. They learn about progress, modernization, Japan's miraculous transformation from feudal state to industrial power in 30 years. They're right to celebrate it. Japan becomes powerful, defeats China in 1895, defeats Russia in 1905, becomes an empire, becomes a world power. Everything the Meiji reformers wanted, but you paid for it. You and thousands like you. Men who were born into one world and died in another. Men who trained their entire lives for a purpose that evaporated. Men who were told they were the soul of Japan, and then told they were obsolete. The worst part? They were right to do it. The reformers, the modernizers. Japan would have been colonized otherwise, carved up by Western powers like China was. The samurai class had to die for Japan to survive. You understand that? Intellectually, you understand that? But understanding doesn't make it easier. Doesn't make your father's suicide meaningful. Doesn't make your lost leg worth it. Doesn't make the years of poverty and shame and watching everything you valued become a museum piece hurt any less. Let's pause here. Let's talk about what really happened. The fall of the samurai wasn't one battle, wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small deaths. It was waking up every day to find that the things you were taught to value, honor, loyalty, martial skill, were liabilities in the new world. It was watching your son learn English instead of swordsmanship. It was seeing factories rise where dojos used to stand. The movies show you Saigo's last stand. Glorious, tragic, beautiful men in beautiful armor, charging heroically to their deaths. They don't show you the aftermath. Don't show you the ex-samurai begging for work. The families that starved because their rice stipends were converted to worthless bonds. The suicides, so many suicides. Men who couldn't adapt, couldn't bear the shame of becoming commoners, who chose death over dishonor. They don't show you the children, the young samurai who survived, who adapted, who cut their hair and put on Western suits and pretended they'd never valued the old ways, who had to, who had no choice. History remembers the warriors, the battles, the drama. The mud remembers everyone else. The men who died of disease in camps, the women who lost everything in the sieges, the children who grew up knowing their fathers were relics. The ordinary samurai, not heroes, not villains, who just tried to survive a world that didn't need them anymore. You weren't special. That's the hardest truth. You were one of thousands, tens of thousands. Men who spent their lives preparing for a role that was obsolete before you were born. The 250 years of peace, the longest peace in Japanese history, created you. And then the world moved on and you were left behind. The sword was beautiful. The philosophy was beautiful. Bushido, the way of the warrior, it had meaning. It gave structure, purpose, a code to live by. But codes don't stop bullets. Philosophy doesn't feed your family. Tradition doesn't mean anything when tradition itself becomes a luxury the nation can't afford. Japan survived. That's what matters. Japan modernized, industrialized, became a power that could stand against the West. The Meiji Restoration was objectively necessary, successful. But success has a cost. Progress has a body count. You were the cost. Think about that for a second. Really think about it. Imagine training your entire life for a specific purpose. Your father trained for it. Your grandfather. Your entire identity is built on it. And then someone tells you, thanks, but we don't need that anymore. Here's a gun. Here's a factory job. Forget everything you were taught. Adapt or die. Some adapted, became police officers, soldiers in the new army, bureaucrats. They took the discipline they'd learned and applied it to new contexts. They survived. Some couldn't. The suicide rate among samurai after the abolition was staggering. Not just ritual seppuku, regular suicide, hanging, drowning. Men who woke up one day and realized they had no purpose and chose oblivion over purposelessness. The West romanticizes the samurai now. Movies, anime, video games. The noble warrior, the master swordsman, the code of honor. It's not wrong, exactly. Those things existed, but they existed in a very specific context. A context that ended. And when it ended, the men who embodied those ideals didn't become unemployed warriors. They became unemployed. Period. Honor doesn't pay rent. Loyalty to a dead system doesn't feed your children. The katana, that perfect sword, that pinnacle of craftsmanship, it became a wall decoration, a relic, something to sell when times got hard. The Meiji government tried to help, sort of. They created stipends, programs. But there were too many former samurai and not enough resources. The programs were underfunded, mismanaged. Many samurai got nothing. Many got just enough to starve slowly instead of quickly. Some became bandits. Some became mercenaries. Some went to Hokkaido, Japan's northern frontier, to farm. Samurai farmers. The cognitive dissonance alone must have been crushing. Men who'd spent their lives learning to kill, learning to die well, standing in rice paddies up to their knees in mud, doing the same work as the peasants they used to have the right to kill for not bowing. But they did it, because the alternative was death. And maybe death with meaning made sense in the old world. But in the new world, death was just death. Pointless. Your family wouldn't be honored, they'd be destitute. So you adapted, or you tried to. The last samurai, the real last samurai, wasn't Saigo Takamori. It was thousands of men, whose names nobody remembers. Men who lived into the 1900s, 1910s, 1920s. Old men by then. Veterans of a war nobody cared about anymore. Of a system nobody wanted to remember. Some of them lived to see World War I. Lived to see modern warfare on a scale that made their battles look like skirmishes, trenches, gas, machine guns, millions dead. The honorable warrior ethic they'd been raised on. It didn't just die in Japan. It died everywhere. Modern war killed it. Some lived to see World War II. Saw Japan become an imperial power. Saw the militarism return. Saw young men, conscripts, not samurai, die by the millions for the emperor, saw Japan lose, saw atomic bombs, saw surrender. The irony must have been overwhelming. The government that destroyed the samurai class did so to make Japan strong. And it worked. Japan became strong. So strong, it thought it could conquer Asia. Strong enough to bring atomic fire down on its own cities. Was it worth it? The question doesn't make sense. History doesn't care about worth. It just happens. But if you're one of the old men, sitting in Tokyo in 1945, watching the ruins, watching the Americans occupy your country, the Americans you were first told were barbarians, then told were enemies, now told are friends, what do you think? Do you think about your father, who died maintaining his honor? About the White Tiger Brigade, teenagers who killed themselves for a misunderstanding? About all the men who fought and bled and died to preserve something that was already dead? Do you feel vindicated, betrayed, or do you just feel old? The samurai class lasted from roughly the 12th century to 1876. 500 years of dominance, of being the warrior, elite, of mattering. It ended in a generation, one generation, yours. Your father was samurai in a stable world. Your son, if you had one, if he survived, was whatever he needed to be in a changing world. You were the hinge, the transitional generation, the ones who got crushed between past and future. There's no lesson here, no moral. History isn't a story with a point. It's just what happened. What happened is this. You were born into a world that told you who to be. You tried to be that, and the world changed its mind. You adapted, or you didn't. You survived, or you didn't. You found meaning in the new order, or you clung to the old one until it killed you. Most people, then, now, always, are just trying to survive, trying to make sense of changes they didn't ask for and can't control, trying to find purpose when the purpose they were given evaporates. The samurai are gone. The class, the system, the world they inhabited, gone. What remains are the swords in museums, the stories, the romance, the lies we tell about honor and glory and beautiful deaths. And somewhere, buried in unmarked graves, forgotten by history. You, the thousands like you, the men who weren't heroes, who didn't choose this, who just tried to live through it. You didn't get a dramatic ending, no last stand, no noble sacrifice, just poverty, sickness, an unmarked grave in a charity cemetery. History remembers the warriors who went down fighting. It remembers Saigo. It remembers the White Tiger Brigade. It remembers the samurai who refused to adapt, who chose death over dishonor. It doesn't remember you, the one who adapted, who survived, who gave up everything you were supposed to be for the chance to keep living. But you were there. You lived it. You felt it. The terror, the confusion, the shame, the exhaustion of trying to matter in a world that kept telling you you don't. That was real. That was true. The rest, the movies, the myth, the romance, that's just what we tell ourselves, so we don't have to think about what it actually means when an entire way of life ends. When a class of people is told, you're obsolete. When tradition meets modernity, and modernity wins because modernity has better guns. When honor becomes a luxury, and survival becomes the only virtue. The fall of the samurai wasn't a battle. It was a slow burial. And you, nameless, forgotten, just another casualty of progress, you were buried alive. History moved on. Japan moved on. The world moved on. But you felt it. The end. You lived through the end. And that's worth remembering. And not because you were special, but because you weren't. Because most people aren't heroes. Most people are just people trying to survive when the rules change. When everything they know becomes obsolete. When the world they were born into dies, and they're left standing in the ruins, wondering what comes next. You were samurai, until you weren't. And in that space between what you were and what you had to become, in that space is where most of history actually happens. Not in the battles, not in the grand decisions, in the mud, in the poverty, in the shame of adapting, in the quiet deaths of men no one remembers. The movies lied to you. The samurai didn't fall gloriously, they just fell, and kept falling, until there was nothing left to fall from. Welcome to history. This is what it really looks like.